space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim, and with me, of course, is Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And we're back to talk about the part one of technically it's the mid-season finale.
Yeah, this is the mid-season finale this time.
Yeah, this time of Prodigy. And then we're also going to talk about Basics Part 1 from Voyager for reasons that will hopefully become clear as we go through the episode.
I think it's got enough similarities.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, so mid-season finale. Two things. One, I'm not convinced this was meant to be a mid-season finale. I feel like this is meant to be the finale of season 1, and for some reason they've decided, it's
no, because this is only episode 9. There's one more episode.
No, but I mean, I feel like this two-parter is meant to be the end of season 1,
right?
It's sort of coming full circle, and
yeah,
to that. But I don't know. And they always said it were 10 episodes, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, it's 20. But the second half's coming later in the year. So,
yeah.
So why it season 1 instead of saying it's season 2 coming later? It don't matter, but it just seems a bit weird.
Yeah, like I actually think this episode is about a minute too long for a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And that's the other thing I was going to say is I really feel like this was whether it were meant to be the season finale or the mid-season finale or whatever the hell it is, I feel like this probably was meant to be shown in a 45-minute block instead of in two halves, because like you say, where they break the episode doesn't feel organic.
No, it'd been like, I know we're jumping right to the end of the episode here, but
spoilers.
We've got where the gravity's gone, the shielding's gone. They're trying to grab onto each other, and they're screaming, and because it looks like all the plans gone wrong, and that had been a great cliffhanger.
Yeah, but instead, it just the way it cuts to the credits don't even look right. Like it
now,
just feels
I wonder if they've put that extra minute on where things aren't quite as bad as what they're saying. If it's because it's for a younger audience,
maybe. I mean,
if I'm viewing that from like my adult's perspective, that the cliffhangers should have been a minute earlier. And if it's got the extra minute because it's actually aimed at a younger audience, not to leave that threat and all that, and
it could be. But I mean, I remember when I were a kid, like we used to get proper cliffhangers. Like there were this animated version of the Wizard of Oz, and it finished with like these geezers who were like could turn into cannons or something, and they were all pointing the cannons at Dorothy and Toto. And
well, I grew up with like obviously with Doctor Who,
yeah,
but we still had on BBC Two. They regularly showed like the Flash Gordon and King of the Rocket Man movie serials from like the 40s and 50s.
Yeah,
always repeated, and every episode ended with them falling to the death.
Well, not really. I mean, half the episodes then like ended with people getting blown up, and then they just changed it.
And then the following episode, no, they weren't in the car. They'd got out like a mile down the road. No, they weren't.
Can you imagine, like in today's sort of zeitgeist of social media and Twitter and everything? Can you imagine
doing that?
Yeah, if they did a cliffhanger like that now and just what the reaction would be, it'd be
Who totally walks it back the week after.
Yeah, it'd be so funny. Just to see,
I
like,
think the internet would melt.
yeah, exactly. Just to watch the meltdown of it, I think it'd be absolutely hilarious. Oh, this is the worst show ever. This is it'd be great.
Like going back and like watching the original Batman serials, and I don't mean the Adam West ones. I mean the black and white ones. And there's one of them, and there's Batman and Robin, and they're on a plane, and it blows up. And then we put on it. And then the following episodes, they get out and walk away before it blows up. It's not like, no, that didn't happen last week.
Yeah, they just put an extra. You see, I think they were on Amazon in the UK for a bit. It's just ridiculous. They just had an extra scene where they all got out and they were fine. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, Star Trek should do that. Like
something big. You need something big to do it, don't you?
Yeah. They should have done that with Best of Both Worlds. Like next episode, it should have just been, Picard want assimilated. Then just got on with it, and you'd have been like, did I make that up?
You couldn't do that back then because Best of Both Worlds was probably when Star Trek really got its new modern audience.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, it was. Yeah, I still think that's like the best cliffhanger ever. Best of Both Worlds Part 1. But we've got 2 to talk about today, so we'll have a look at them. Yeah, so A Moral Star then, Part 1. First of all, 9 credited writers on this.
Yeah.
That's insane. You never see that many. I mean, some of them, to be fair, are it's like so and so, and then there's an ampersand so and so, which means that they're like a writing duo.
Yeah.
So that's kind of only counts as 1, but even so, there's still like 6, even if you take them out of it. Which, like you know, the way TV's done is you have a writing room, and they bash out the idea together, and then you usually have a writer who's assigned to it, and they get credited. But you never see this many writers actually credited on one episode.
I wonder if they're just crediting the writing room.
That's all.
I know that I can't remember his name, but one of the novelists was brought in as like the head consultant.
All right.
To bring things in. That's where the that element for the cloaking device to use like the other week.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember what they called it.
I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, but I know what you mean.
He actually wrote that into his novels.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's come from the novels as that element.
I like that some of the Star Trek novel writers are getting involved in the shows now, like Kirsten Beyer, I think, on Discovery as well. And it's really good because they've been doing such great work in the novels for decades.
Well, they've kept it going. They've kept it going for 20 years while it wasn't on screen.
Yeah. And it's great that they're actually getting to do something that can, because
it's okay. It's all saying it has to be on TV to be canon, but there's a whole universe of novels, and there has been universe building in some of these. There's I wouldn't like to think how many books have been written.
Oh yeah, thousands it must be now, but. Like, particularly the relaunch novels that they did that carried on after the end of Nemesis and after the end of Voyager and after the end of DS9. And they've had like 20 odd years of their own mythology and everything. And we're sort of in the same situation now with Star Trek fiction that Star Wars fiction was when Disney took over, when they went, no, we're making sequels and it's going to retcon it. And that's pretty much what's happened with Picard. Like we've had all these shows.
Yeah, but I think like Disney are doing the same as Star Trek, and they are bringing in the sort of novel universes, realizing, hold on, the fans have been reading this for just to go. It doesn't count. The fans are going, no, sod you. I've spent I've been buying this for 20 years. You're not
Yeah.
telling me just because you're making a new movie or a new series that what I've read doesn't count.
Yeah, I mean, the big difference there, I think, is that Star Wars, it was always treated as canon, whereas Star Trek's always been really clear.
Yeah,
that
Star Trek has
not.
always said it isn't.
But yeah, he's cool. This is getting onto a tangent with Star Wars, but yeah, it's cool how they're taking characters that were introduced in the old expanded universe, like Grand Admiral Thrawn and things like that, and bringing them into the new universe. So that's really cool. But yeah, and we are doing that to an extent, like with the design of the Titan is taken from the front cover of all the novels. You know, they've used the same design of the Titan in when it's appeared in Lower Decks. So yeah, we're doing a bit of that. Anyway, this episode then. So I like that it picks up and they acknowledge what happened last week. Like they're talking about, we learned to work together even though we were in different times.
Yeah, like Prodigy seems to be doing this a lot. That it's literally, almost literally an episode a day sometimes.
Yeah,
not even a week's passed. They're literally talking about what they did yesterday.
Yeah, you're very much getting a sense of the time scale and the continuity of it.
Yeah, it's continuing onwards, and they're keeping a continuity going. Yeah,
but it's not. It's striking a good balance because it's not totally serialized. So if you
it isn't serialized. There is a story arc.
Yeah,
but you could quite happily sit down and watch any episode of Prodigy without having to watch the whole series to know what's going on. Which I very much like. It's something I've not, as much as I've enjoyed discovering Picard. It's very hard to go back and watch an episode.
Yeah, as we found doing this podcast, I mean, you've got to cover it all, or you don't. Like we've been fortunate that when we launched, Discovery season 1 had been on, but we were pretty much ready to pick straight up with 2. But we've not really.
We're doing the podcast for Discovery season.
No, not season 1. No, we launched just before the start of season 2.
Right.
But it shows that in that time we've only gone back and done the time loop episode.
Yeah.
And that's it from season 1, because if we're going to do it, we're going to have to do the whole.
We're going to have to do the whole thing, which God knows when we'll do that. Tune in about 5 years' time, maybe.
Yeah, if all these guys on YouTube are right and everything's cancelled, then maybe we'll get a chance. But
it's been cancelled since it's all been cancelled since the first episode of Discovery, according to them.
Yeah, exactly. So
and CBS or Paramount Plus are only doing more Star Trek just to save face.
Well, they're really saving face at the minute, spending a lot of money on saving face at the moment.
We've said it all along, it's nonsense, haven't we?
Of course it is. So, more going back to Star Wars again, the Diviner sends his "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi" message, but it's sort of the opposite. He's not.
It's a red one, not a blue one. That's how you can tell it's evil.
That's it, and he's good. Yeah,
that's always been the giveaway in movies. Yeah. Red is evil.
Yeah, it's the new. Instead of having like cowboys with black hats and white hats, red technology is bad, definitely. And he's wanted them to turn themselves in and everything, which. This ties us back to, we've been banging on about it since the first episode. We've got to go rescue the cute little cat, and we're getting there this episode. And it's good that you get the crew having a debate about it, and the options are: we can go to the Federation, but they might not be able to get there in time, or we can go back and try and save them.
But we can only do one jump, which. Like, we've had this discussion, haven't we, about what are the actual distances?
Yeah.
And, I think that travel has changed a lot, the speed of travel from what we've seen in Voyager to what's available now. Because the sort of woman and ahhing if the Federation could make it back in time.
Yeah, that's true. And it's like, yeah, if the Federation, unless the Federation's grown and it now covers
a lot more space. Or maybe they're just sort of thinking, well, maybe the Federation has more proto stars.
Maybe so, yeah. That's probably the thought process. But I suppose we've got to assume from this that to go into proto warp, all the energy goes into throwing you into the warp, but it doesn't need much to maintain it.
Yeah.
It can't be that it uses the same amount of energy the full way, because if they only had enough energy to go once, there's a big difference between going 4,000 light years back to where they started or 70,000 to...
Yeah. So I think you're right that the energy consumption is to get into proto.
Yeah, warp. And it must be that once you're in it, you can go as long as you want.
Yeah,
but
it can maintain it for a certain amount of time once you're in it. But it takes a huge amount to charge it up and fire.
That seems to be. I mean, it must be if we're using the evidence that we've got so far. But they plan it all out, and Dal gets some more captainy moments, like he's worried about the crew. And he has that thing where he says, I can't risk it. And it's the whole, oh, is he talking to just Gwyn, or is he talking to everyone?
Yeah.
Gwyn, like, yeah, we get it. We know what's going on with them too.
Yeah, that's quite obvious. And I've no problem with that. They're both teenagers.
Exactly.
It'll all end in tears, but that's what happens with teenage love.
It is. I mean, usually it's not often this dramatic, but yeah, I mean, you know, what teenager has not fallen in love with a girl who then has to go back to her evil father who steals the spaceship? Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah, you get marooned on an asteroid.
Yeah, she's gone. She's away. You're probably going to have to go rescue her next week. But, or maybe she'll rescue herself. Gwyn's probably the most capable of all of them. So. Anyway. But nice to see him acting like a captain. Like, I've got to think about my crew.
Yeah.
And I love that they have a coffee with Janeway to plan it all out. You know, that's that's kind of Janeway's handing the torch to them, you know, share a coffee with me.
Yeah, well, she does say that you might not be Starfleet, but you are acting like a crew now.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, again, we sort of talked about that in the early days, that this might be where we're going with this, and it's like, great that we've got there.
It's like this, where they can do one jump back to the Federation. I don't believe we'll ever see that. Until the very end of the series, because as soon as they go back to the Federation, they're in a stolen Federation ship. It doesn't matter what they've been doing in it all the time. It's a Federation ship.
And technically, they only stole it from the person who stole it, but it's still
they stole it to escape.
You've got to give
Federation
it back.
property. Yeah,
yeah. You can't. You can't.
Yeah, they're not keeping it.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think if we go back to the Federation, we don't get to keep this ship. So
no, I can't see us going back.
I can't, because I like this dynamic of this sort of ragtag team on a ship. And yeah, you could carry the show on. They could go back to the Federation. They could get assigned to a different ship or whatever. But
then you'd have there'd be ensigns or cadets, and you'd have a crew telling them what to do and looking after them. And
exactly, it's not as much fun. I like it's a fun setup.
And they're making it looks like they're making the Academy series with Tilly. So
yeah, we're getting that.
They've got that covered.
Yeah, we get a big reveal of the new uniform now. I'm going with that. This is a special Protostar uniform. That's my take on it. Is that kind of like, this is an experimental ship. You get a different uniform to distinguish yourselves. I'm going with this isn't standard Starfleet uniform.
I'm thinking, because it isn't marked out with insignias or anything or ranks. It's all the same colour.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is this a cadet uniform? But I think
Maybe,
this is
yeah.
another way that we're thinking there's been a time jump more
Yeah.
than what we think.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, we know that Starfleet does change its uniforms quite often.
Yeah.
But in the time after Nemesis, before Picard, they got really carried away with it. Like, you know, we've seen at least 2 different uniforms in Picard, at least 2 different uniforms in Lower Decks, and now this one. So
and now we're seeing another one. It's that's
at least 5 in 20
Like-
years we've gone through.
like if it is a different uniform because it's a prototype ship, but wouldn't Chakotay have had that uniform on when we've seen?
I thought he did in that
Did he?
video that we saw. Yeah,
Right,
I
I'd
thought
have to go back and check if he actually did have this
yeah,
uniform.
I've a
Because
feeling
then it'd make sense that it's a Protostar uniform for an
Yeah.
experimental ship.
and Janeway decides to put that uniform on as well, so she fits in.
Yeah.
So that's nice. And Dal, proving that he is a modern Star Trek captain, has got his go to warp catchphrase, which is "Go fast."
Yeah, go fast. I like that.
Yeah,
and it's very fitting for this ship.
it is. Yeah. So there we go. He's got that one. So that's another one that Saru can't have.
Yeah.
He can't have go fast. So
He can't have warp me.
no, he's gonna have to come up with something. I think everyone's allowed to have engage, just because, you know, obviously Captain Picard's got it trademarked, but
Yeah.
it's one that everyone can say. It's kind of your default one, like what's the one with in Scotland with the kilts? There's one sort of generic kilt that every clan is allowed to wear.
Right.
But then you've got your own clan ones as well. So I remember I've got Scottish ancestry, and I asked my dad, "Oh, what kilt is our family's kilt?" And he said, "I've tried to find out, but I've no idea. If you ever want to buy one, you've just got to go with basic one." Anyway, so the Diviner, you know what? He's a bit of a baddie because he starts double crossing them, going back on the deal straight away. The original deal was they'd turn the ship over, he'd let everyone live, but he says, "You know what? I want Gwyn to come with me now." So that's part 1 of him betraying him, but it gets
worse. So the sort of bargain well, if you're doing that, you leave us. What does he call his ship? The Red 10.
Yeah.
You leave us the Red 10 so we can get off.
Yeah. And he ends up, he decides to, technically, he gets out of it on the technicality, says, "I said I'd leave him the ship," which he does, but it cripples the ship. So, bit naughty, but, you know, technically, you're right, but this
confused me. Because when he crippled the ship, that turned off the shielding and the gravity on the asteroid. But we saw in the second episode, the second part of the season premiere, it launched from the asteroid and just left it.
Yeah. So
it must have its own power supply to maintain the shield when it's not there.
Yeah, you're right. Destroying the ship's power source shouldn't cripple the asteroid unless they're linked, but
we've seen him off on the mission with the Red 10 for ages.
Yeah. Unless it did take the power away and they're all just floating about when he left them. But
he left them floating for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, you know, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who cares too much about that sort of thing. I mean,
yeah, but he wants them to keep digging because he still needs the mineral that they produce.
Oh yeah, you're not going to be able to do good mining if you're floating about
and you have no air.
Yeah, they'd have all been dead when he got back. So yeah, good point. I think you might have stumbled on a plot hole then in the.
Surely not a plot hole in a
Star Trek show. Ooh, we don't get many of them, but yeah. Anyway, I think you have anyhow. Before that, though, we get some hints, and I hope we're going to get some answers on this soon. The Diviner's clearly got a major issue with the Federation because we've had hints before that he really don't like the Federation, but to the extent that he's like, get that dirty combat job.
Yeah.
He doesn't even want that in.
And the Protostar is as the means to our salvation.
Yeah, there's hints that.
Now, I wonder if it's something to do with the actual Protostar itself, the power supply, is something to do with his species system or something.
Yeah, I'm wondering if. I don't think we're gonna make him into a fully sympathetic bad guy because he's just too. He's too much of a, excuse the pun, but too much of a cartoon villain. You know, he's very, very evil. But I do wonder if there's going to be something more like he's doing it because his species is in danger or something, and it's just that he's gone about it the wrong way. I think there's enough.
But it's like, why does he hate the Federation? Have the Federation refused to help him? Like, it could be something like the Federation have maybe done the thing that Janeway's not very good at, or Kirk, or any of the rest of them, and actually followed the Prime Directive.
Yeah, maybe. And yeah, but then how specifically is the Protostar going to be the thing that saves them? Because we know it's not. If his planet's in danger, we know it's not big enough to even evacuate this mining colony. So he's not going to evacuate a planet with the Protostar. So something's in danger.
It in the ship itself. It's got to be the energy source.
Yeah,
that he's after.
Yeah, and he keeps saying, you know, the truth, and he should have told Gwyn, and so I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I feel like we're going to get that next week because
we did see him. He almost screwed Gwen out of his own cell, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
And it took, didn't it take a lot of power to do it? I wonder if, to regrow his species, he needs this power source.
Ooh, maybe that'd be interesting. Yeah, if his species is already dead, but he's going to use
to bring them back.
Oh yeah,
and maybe he hates the Federation because the Federation have refused to help him bring his species back.
Yeah, I'd go with that. That you will have seriously get some brownie points next week if you've nailed it there. Because that is a really, really good theory. I like it. Anyway, so he double crosses him again. There's a nice scene where they're all having to catch each other, sort of hammering home the teamwork element.
Yeah, that they can work together, and I've got you, and
yeah, that's excellent. And then the twist we get from the good guys is
this should have been the start of the second episode.
Yeah. And it's so they've taken out the Protos. Literal
first of all, Zero's beamed off separately.
Yeah, since
and they've got Murph. They've got Murph hidden in a mock Zero suit.
Yeah, but Murph's got the Protostar inside of him.
Yeah, he swallowed it
because he's completely invincible, as we know. And yeah, they've used the vehicle replicator to make. I think a normal replicator could have probably handled a Zero suit.
Yeah.
But no, we've used the big one, so that's fine.
We've used the vehicle replicator because it's a mechanical object.
Yeah,
I can go with that.
That's better than it making more dreadnoughts anyway. So, and then Dal says, you know, let's see if this crazy plan works, and then it just ends.
They've cut off the gravity. It's an inconvenience, but we can work around it, or words to that effect, wasn't it?
Something like that, yeah. And to be fair to them, you can see that they have anticipated this because they've got these gravity belts, which
It's got the rocket packs, haven't they?
Yeah, and you do see that earlier on during the coffee montage. So good. This is coming together.
Yeah, they've anticipated the Divine double crossing them.
Yeah, I think the only thing they didn't anticipate is in taking Gwyn. because
No, I think they did because they were there going. Do you think Gwen's bought us enough time yet?
yeah, fair point. So yeah,
I think they've anticipated him taking Gwen,
right, yeah, no, I think you're right, yeah.
and they are. Do you think she's bought us enough time? Which says it all.
Well, we'll find out next week whether she has or not. But you know what? I think the good guys are going to win in this. I think that's one of the benefits of it being
Star Trek.
Star Trek, but also a kids show. Is we're probably going to get a happy ending by the mid-season break. So
yeah,
which I still think is the end of season 1, really. But we want to play silly games and call it season whatever.
Yeah.
Trying to fiddle the taxes or something, you know.
I've no idea how they're doing it.
I've no idea.
Maybe they've got out of if Chakotay pops up in so many episodes in flashbacks, by calling all this season 1, they don't have to credit him as a main character.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe that's what it's all about.
That's a good thing. If Chakotay
is it half the season you've got to be in to be credited as a season regular?
Oh, I don't know. It's something like that. Like, there's so many like Actors Guild of America rules and how you credited, and it's absolutely crazy stuff. I mean,
yeah, if you're in a percentage of the season, you've got to be credited as a main character, and then you get paid for the whole season.
Well, that's it as well. Yeah.
So if they make it like, oh no, if we make this a 20 episode season, it really is a 20 episode season, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, we don't have to
pay you. We only have to pay you per episode.
We don't have to pay Chakotay. We don't have to pay John Noble because there were an episode where the Diviner wasn't in it. So as long as we have a few where he's not in it, maybe. You never know.
To be fair, I think you'd probably, if you're getting John Noble, you've done a deal already, haven't you? Whatever.
Yes, I think John Noble gets what
John Noble wants.
Yeah, he gets paid what he's worth. I would say John Noble is great. Anyway, so yeah, we'll see how that one ends next week. And because we have a crew who's stranded without the ship, it was actually you and Dr. Squee who straight away were like, we should do Basics Part 1.
Yeah,
and I just didn't have a clue. I was like, oh yeah, now that you mention it.
Yeah, well, they get stranded without the ship. We have one of the crew still on the ship, so you have the Doctor and Gwen as a counterpart. Yeah. You have one of them, you don't know where he is, really. That's Parison Zero.
Yeah.
If you didn't see Zero for the last minute, that shouldn't have been in it. You have sort of like the unknown factor, and that's Murph and Air Suiter.
Yeah, no, I think you were both absolutely bang on the money, but yeah, it was just weird how you two were like straight away, and I'm just like, oh, which episode are we doing? Anyway, Basics Part 1 then. So the season 2 finale of Voyager. And yeah, this is because season 1, I mean, we've talked about the controversy over season 1 of Voyager, like which episodes were meant to be in season 1 and which ones were held back for season 2 and blah, blah, blah. So the season...
I was actually reading about this this last week. Oh, actually, in the end of season 2, and there's 4 episodes of season 3 that they filmed at the same time as season 2. So they did the full season. But they did like 26 episodes. But they actually filmed 30. They filmed Basics Part 2 back to back.
That doesn't surprise me actually, because this is one of the things I was going to say about this episode is that. Traditionally, with your Star Trek cliffhangers, like we've already talked about Best of Both Worlds Part 1, which is like the greatest cliffhanger ever, but they did not have a clue how they were going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
And for most Star Trek season finale cliffhangers, that's the case. They put all their effort into writing a great cliffhanger and then they think about it later. Whereas this one, you can see
Well,
that they thought about what's
to
going
be
to
fair,
happen.
Voyager was very good at this with the cliffhangers. Voyager's probably the best one
Yeah,
that we've had with the cliffhangers and two-parters that actually work
yeah.
properly as a cliffhanger, and it carries on. And I wonder if it, like, I haven't looked into it, but it'd be interesting to see if, like, all of the cliffhangers were filmed back to back with
Or at
Voyager.
least,
If they've
at
started that,
least,
if they've done it for the first 2 seasons,
or at least written. I mean, what I was going to say about season 1 is whichever episode you take as the end of season 1, it's not a cliffhanger ending.
yeah.
And I think there's a degree of that where it's like the first season, and more modern TV shows should follow this with the amount of shows that get cancelled in the first season. I think season 1, it's reasonable not to finish on a cliffhanger because you don't know if you've won your audience over. You don't know.
There's lots of shows that I don't watch now until it's in season 2 or season 3.
Yeah,
And it's for that reason, because I've got really fed up of getting invested in a show and then it didn't get renewed.
Yeah,
And they've ended on a cliffhanger, and it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I do exactly the same thing. Unless it's like I'm reading that it's an absolute smash hit, and there's no question it's going to get renewed.
I think when you look at the Star Trek universe, it's going to get renewed.
Yeah,
The Star Wars universe is going to get renewed.
Oh yeah.
But anything that's launching new is always going to be on dodgy ground.
And that's why I think DS9 and Voyager were really sensible in that they didn't do cliffhangers at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
They were like, we'll wait and see how we get on. And
like Enterprise took it too much to an extreme at the end of season 4.
Yeah, true. And Enterprise, noticeably, they did do a full-on cliffhanger at the end of season 1. But luckily, they didn't get cancelled until season 4, so we got a resolution to Shockwave.
Yeah, but that was the same thing. It was Star Trek, and it was going to get renewed, whatever, from season 1 to season 2. It was going to get, at the worst case, it'd be 2 seasons. It'd have to be really, really complete and utter garbage not to get renewed for another season.
And that's the other thing. That's how TV's changed as well. Like, I think most shows were probably fairly confident that as long as they weren't an absolute bomb, they'd probably get a second season to find the feet. Whereas now it's like, if your first episode doesn't do gangbusters, you cancel.
What is it? Like Cowboy Bebop, that's not getting renewed. And I was reading the figures, and the figures are 88 million viewers.
Yeah,
it's not getting renewed because it's not big enough.
Streaming shows are just such a different demographic that I don't even know how they gauge.
Yeah, but that's scary when you think on that platform they're saying for what the show costs, 88 million viewers isn't enough.
It's weird. Like, I've read there's an algorithm or something they look at, and most streaming shows don't go past season 4 because apparently they've done the metrics, and the likelihood of someone renewing the subscription for a 5th season of an established show, it just drops sharply.
Yeah.
I've no idea, but I mean, to my mind, Netflix has been going a long while now, but we're only sort of really at the start of the streaming service boom at the minute. So I don't think it's been going long enough for us to recognize these trends and go.
Yeah, and how big a show actually has to be to.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, we'll leave that to the executives. But the point is, don't end season 1 on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Unless you've already got a season 2 renewal, because it pisses us off. However, Voyager, by the time of season 2, is like, yeah, we can do a cliffhanger. We know we're coming back for season 3.
Well, if they've been allowed to film 4 more episodes for season 3, they've obviously been renewed at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And right, well, I mean, we're going to get on to Chakotay, my favorite guy, because he has some belters in this episode. But
he's brilliant in this episode. You can see he's the most authentic Native American ever on TV in this episode.
Yeah, him
And I say that with my tongue well in my cheek.
Yeah, I think it's either him or Tonto from the Lone Ranger.
But
So-
whose version? Who was it?
Johnny Depp, who did
Johnny
it in the
Depp.
film. Yeah. So they get a message from Seska. Now, I think Seska's a great character. I think she's a brilliant recurring villain.
She is.
We'll put aside the argument over whether we should have seen the Kazon as much as we have, because that's been done to death. No, we shouldn't, but she is a great villain. So
the problem with the Kazon is they were made too weak.
Yeah, they were made too weak, but also that they've got no good technology, but they're always ahead of Voyager. Wherever Voyager, for 2 years, it's not even like
it's not even like it's the following week that they've another planet. It's like, no, for 2 years, this race that wants Voyager, because it's so technologically more advanced than what they've got, are able to outrun you.
Yeah, constantly. And yeah, it's just craziness. But anyway, we'll put that aside because that we'll just take that as a given that that's silly. And let's focus on the other silly stuff in this episode. So, and the good stuff as well. But back to Chakotay. So Seska says, "Oh, it's your son, Chakotay." Straight away, Chakotay is just the ultimate deadbeat dad because he goes, "Whoa, I'm not sure it's my responsibility." First you've heard about it, and already the first thing you say is, "Whoa.
Whoa, I had nothing to do with this."
Which is technically true. But the fact is, this kid's here, and Chakotay, first thing he says is, "Oh no, I'm not sure it's my responsibility. I'm going to go talk to my animal guide about it." And this is something, I think we've sort of touched on this when talking about Chakotay before, and this is something that I find really interesting in terms of how Star Trek treats. I'm not sure religion's the right word because I don't know enough about Native American culture, and I don't know if this is truly representative of Native American culture for reasons that we've discussed in the past. But let's say it is. So within the Star Trek universe, what we're saying here is that Native Americans have this thing where they go on vision quests, they have spirit guides, and they go on vision quests and all of this stuff. But not only are we saying that, we seem to be making it canon that these vision quests work and are actually a real thing.
Well, there's also, it looks like he has some sort of device that helps him go on the vision quest. So we're sort of saying that the vision quests are real, and there's also technology that they have that helps them get into the right state of mind or enter the vision quest.
Yeah, which it's just so hard to kind of wrap your head around what this means for what it means for the bigger Star Trek universe. Like, why are we not all doing this? If this is a thing that works, if you can do a vision quest and get advice from an ancestor who can see the past, present, and future, and let's all do this.
If we've got this technology,
and if we're saying that this Native American spirituality is a real thing, are we therefore saying that all religions must be true as well? I'm not knocking it, and if this is a belief system, and the only reason I say if is because of the questionable nature of the advice they received on Native American culture. But I'm not knocking it if this is your religion or this is something you choose to follow, or that's absolutely fine. What I find interesting is that within the fiction of Star Trek, we're taking an Earth religion and saying that is canonically true. What they believe is fact. And we don't do that with any other religion. It's so interesting to me.
Yeah,
But,
it's a funny one.
yeah, and I don't know what the answer is. I just find it fascinating.
And this really did happen, that the Native American women were raped.
Oh,
but
yeah,
these part of the tribes afterwards. They took them all in.
And that is interesting that, Star Trek is dealing with that, because it's not a contentious subject in the sense that, we all know that happened, but dealing with it in it's not highlighted, it's not trumpeted or anything, but it's just put out there. And it's good that they deal with things like this. But Chakotay's dad, though, again, probably looking at it from 2022 eyes a bit too much, but he's a little bit ableist. Like, he goes, well, as long as he's born with 2 arms and 2 legs, it's fine. Like, well, so hang on, what if he's missing an arm? Are we saying we're not up for that? His dad.
Well, I think his dad was just getting through to the point, what's the problem is a baby.
Yeah, I know he was. But then Chakotay doubles down on it. He's like, I'm not sure I'm willing to be a father. Like, we get that, it wasn't your choice and the baby wasn't conceived in the traditional way, but it's a bit late for it, Chakotay.
I like how his dad goes. He goes, correct me if I'm wrong, but like how I remember it, with your mother, I had to be there. I had to be involved.
It wouldn't surprise me if Chakotay's never been involved, but
well, he had been involved with Seska in the past, hadn't he? She was his ex.
She was, it's true. And we know that B'Elanna fancied him for a little bit in season 2. And he's got that whole thing with Janeway, and then obviously him and Seven, right?
And then that great romance with 7 of 9.
Yeah, the 2 episodes I think they devoted to that. Yeah, Chakotay, very much a ladies' man. So that's the Vision quest then. But don't want to be a father. And we do get some really cool stuff. Like Harry's plan, like, we'll make it look like we've got backup from the Talaxians. And then the Doctor's like, right, you know what? Let's take it one further. Let's actually make the ships appear.
Yeah, that's quite a clever idea. We'll use parabolic mirrors and holographic projectors.
Yeah, and another really good bit of that is when Janeway says, oh, Doctor, I'm always happy to take your input on whatever the subject is. Like, right.
Oh, great. I've got lots of ideas.
Yeah, love it. It's like, come on, Janeway. You must have realised that the Doctor's, if you stroke the Doctor's ego, he will.
Yeah, give him an inch. He's going to take a mile.
Exactly. So that's a great Doctor moment. And then we get the Kazon geezer who turns up. Seska's dead. Spoiler, she's not.
She's not. He's lying.
But Chakotay, to be fair to him, straight away he knows this isn't true. He's just
there's something going on here, but I don't know what.
But the rest of them, a little bit, give him some quarters and stuff. It'll be fine.
if he'd been on that shuttle an hour or 2 longer, he'd be dead from the poison he's breathing in. And
yeah, that is interesting, given obviously that it is revealed that, I mean, clearly, this guy were going to die no matter what happened.
Yeah.
So he's obviously willing to give his life for it. But yeah, it's pretty horrible thing to have. Got to make it look convincing. So what we're going to do is leave you on this thing breathing in this poison.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, because that does get into, again, we're jumping ahead, but effectively this is a suicide bomber, and that's very much
this is a suicide bomber doing the car bomb, where he's got to breathe in the exhaust fumes all the way to it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Like,
yeah.
You meant to, you'd think they'd treat you quite well before you go in, but no, this, like you say, that's a really good analogy. And the doctor finds a dodgy blood disorder, and bless him, the doctor's like, oh, well, we'll have to start treatment for that. We can find out what's wrong with it. And that, in a way, just does sum up the Starfleet ethos, isn't it? It's like, oh, we found this. We're gonna sort it out for you, but it's not gonna work with this guy.
Yeah, I've got a problem with this whole thing, like with his bombing thing, because he pulls the thing off his toe, and then he pulls some out, and then you get a close up, and it's clearly a metal needle that he injects himself with. So why didn't any of the scanners pick up the metal?
Yeah, I don't know. And wouldn't, like, the transporter's meant to filter or detect stuff like that while you're in the matter stream.
Yeah, but he's also got the doctor who's scrutinising him to find out what's wrong.
Yeah, why if they not?
And the doctor isn't like a human doctor where he'll pass over a part of the body because that's not what he's treating. He's going to literally go millimetre by millimetre.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, I don't know, because you could have had a little scene where they say, oh, we found something unusual here, and then the Kazon makes up some story like, oh, it's a bit of shrapnel.
Yeah.
But would that have telegraphed it a bit too much that he's going to do something dodgy? But then I don't think there's much question he's going to do something dodgy. I don't feel like the episode is trying to convince us that this guy is anything but a trap, so yeah, it wouldn't have hurt to have put something in like that just to acknowledge, just to avoid an error there, really. But Chakotay gets to duff him up a little bit, which is, good on him.
Well, he did duff Chakotay up a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So he gets to have a bit of revenge. So that's fine. Then it's pretty much action all the way to the end of the episode. Like, we're going into battle, and Janeway comes up with a great line. She says, "We don't have any torpedoes to waste," which
doesn't hold true for the rest of the series.
Yeah, if you've not seen it, just go on YouTube and put in Voyager torpedoes, and people have done videos, and I think what's been decided is that they must have been growing torpedoes on the hydroponics base. It's the only thing that explains.
To be fair on this torpedo thing, they obviously can build shuttles because they lose lots of shuttles. So it's not beyond the realms for them to be building torpedoes as well.
And maybe they had a torpedo replicator, like the...
Well, maybe the vehicle replicator can make torpedoes as well.
Yeah, maybe so. But Voyager fires more torpedoes than they say they've got, is the long and short of it. But so I just thought, in retrospect, it is a funny line, because
it is.
Probably up until this point, they were keeping an eye on it. And then at some point they thought, you know what, we can't get caught up in worrying about how many torpedoes we've got. If it's
or shuttlecraft, or crew members.
If it's at the expense of making a good episode of TV,
if we can have some good effects of a good fight scene, or we can have Voyager just having its shields up and running away. Let's have some good effects of a fight scene.
Exactly. Like, it's fun to pick at continuity things and things like that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's all... Oh, we're having a bit of... are you getting some interference? Oh. It's your mic. Sorry, apologies to anyone listening. I don't know. I'll message you. Hang on, that's better. No, can't hear you.
How's that now?
Oh, there we go. That's better.
I unplugged it, plugged it back in again. Great IT technique.
That's it. It always works. So, yeah, sorry, apologies. Anyone who got that, we'll cut that out of the actual podcast. So, what were we talking about?
Torpedoes and it getting into action.
Yeah, continuity. Basically, it's fun to pick at it, but at the end of the day, if
continuity is going to interfere with the show,
yeah,
with nitpicking things like this with the torpedoes, it's great that Voyager's got 7 years, but to say it's on, I can't remember what the torpedo complement is when it sets off. But if you say Voyager's only got 20 torpedoes for 7 seasons, that's not a lot.
No. And I think
you have to go at some point, hang about. When we need torpedoes, we'll fire them.
Exactly. And I think if you watch that YouTube video, they end up firing him at 97 or something like that. But yeah, it's good fun. But yeah, don't let little finicky points of continuity get in the way of entertainment. Speaking of entertainment, though, the Doctor accidentally gets beamed into the battle. Well, not beamed, he gets projected.
Well, we have a lot of little skirmishes, don't we? And they're hitting just one area over and over.
Yeah.
And they take out a secondary power coupling.
Yeah, it shows the kids aren't as daft as we think they are sometimes. You know, they've.
Well, this is obviously Seska, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Seska's thought this through and given them all the tactics. And you do get that. Like, you get some good stuff with Maj Colour where Seska's clearly in charge and he acts like, oh, I don't like being told what to do by my woman and everything.
Yeah.
But at one point, he ends up, she's giving the orders and he just sort of nods at his men after. He's like, yeah, do what she says.
Yeah, what she said.
And that's it. He obviously realizes that she's a lot cleverer than he is, but just don't want to admit it because of the way
that's not their culture.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the Doctor floating around in space. It's a good visual. It's funny. The Doctor's always like the MVP of Voyager. So yeah,
like somehow he can shout while he's in space. It's amazing how voices can carry in a vacuum.
Oh yeah, that's the point. Yeah, he wouldn't need oxygen for his lungs, so that's fine. But yeah, how
sounds carried. But Star Trek has that. Star Trek's always had that way.
Star Trek,
because you can hear all the phases and photon torpedoes. And it's admitted they go, yeah, we know it's wrong, but I know Firefly did it where they didn't have sound in space, but Star Trek went, no, it won't be as entertaining. And I agree with Star Trek. And Star Wars the same, and masses of other sci-fi.
Yeah, basically, 2001: A Space Odyssey did it right, and then we ignored it for 40 years. And then Firefly came along and a couple of other shows have done it. But I think does, what's it called? The Expanse? I don't think they do.
Yeah, they don't do sound, I think, in space.
Yeah,
but you do hear it from inside the ships.
Yeah, exactly. And Firefly pulled that trick a couple of times. Like, they went down into the atmosphere so you could... but yeah, the sound in space in films...
Yeah.
That's the way it works. We're not doing Superman 4 where a woman can breathe in space. That'd just be silly. But sound in space is fine. And this is where the Kazon blows himself up. And this is what I'm saying about they clearly knew where part 2 was going to go because they put things in like Tom goes off to the Talaxians. The Doctor deactivates himself for 12 hours.
Yeah. We have Suter. Like, we haven't mentioned Suter.
No.
He doesn't do a lot in this episode, but you're reminded of him.
Yeah.
Because there's been a few episodes before he killed a couple of people. He's a psychopath. Two rockets caught him, and he's done a mind meld with him to help cure him.
Yeah.
and all that. But he's basically locked in. He's locked in his quarters.
Yeah, and yeah, we're setting him up to do something else here, which we'll cover next week. But the fact that they're planting these seeds of, right, we know we're going to do a cliffhanger. Let's give ourselves threads we can pull on to get ourselves out of the cliffhanger. Whereas, again, going back to Best of Both Worlds Part 1, we didn't do any of that. It was just Riker's just about to kill Captain Picard.
Yeah.
There's no way out of this. Within what you've set up to this point, that must be what happens next. Which makes for a hell of a cliffhanger, but it gives a headache to the person who's got to work out how to get out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, very cleverly here, we are setting up these threads so that we can, when it comes time to resolve it, we can do it. And yeah, the Kazon win. And this is where you get all this stuff with Madge Culler, who's basically blaming all the problems in his world on women. It's like, well, this is what happens when you put women in charge of spaceships, and this is what happens when women tell you what to do. And it's like, to be fair, Culler, you'd still be dossing about doing whatever you were doing if Seska hadn't come into your life.
You'd be trying to nick a bit of water off the Compa.
Yeah, exactly. So you owe pretty much everything you achieved to women. And one bit again, they use what's clearly stock footage of a volcano when you see the planet.
I just want to go back a bit here because, like, we've missed why when they start boarding, Janeway tries to self-destruct.
Of course, yeah.
And then it's like unable to comply due to secondary power coupling failure. Really? You can't self-destruct when your secondary power. Your self-destruct is when your ship is getting absolutely mauled and smashed up to pieces as a last resort. It's still meant to self-destruct, not because of secondary power coupling on your dorsal. The cellar's been hit a few hits.
Yeah, I did have that thought. It's like, yeah, your self-destruct should be the last thing to stop working. Like, it should be like a black box, it's...
Like, I can see why they've done this, and it shows clever tactics, because they didn't realise what the Kazon were up to with the little skirmishes where they kept hitting the same part.
Yeah.
But surely at some point, they should have run a diagnostic. What systems are affected by this?
Yeah, you'd have thought they'd have asked that question, but if they hadn't have done, we wouldn't have got the cool cliffhanger.
No.
So, but yeah, the stock footage of the volcano, fair enough. Now we'd probably do it with CGI, but
the thing is though that they're coming down onto a huge volcanic flat. The whole thing is molten.
It's not a nice planet.
And it's a good job. I think this is a Genesis planet because in the time from them entering the atmosphere to landing, all that volcanic activity had turned into solid rock and mountain ranges with greenery growing all over it.
That's true. And also you get...
it's only the Genesis planet that we know that goes that fast.
It's true. And yeah, because you get one of the crew, I think, maybe is it B'Elanna, and they say... This planet's got seismic activity. Like, do you think did you not see that video?
Did you not look out the window or the view screen as you came down like the rest of us?
It looked pretty bad when we were coming in. And so there's nice symmetry here with the episode The 37s. Again, going back to the whole thing with holding episodes back. So the 37s, depending on how you look at it, is either the finale of season 1, in which case this mirrors it by being the finale of season 2, or it's the first episode of season 2, in which case we bookend the season with the ship landing.
And the same bit of footage.
Well, yeah. But in the 37s, it's we're landing to help people. In this one, it's we're landing because we're in trouble. So
yeah,
I like the contrast. It's kind of showing... Yeah, things have got worse for Voyager this year. And it gets even worse because we set up all the other stuff. So we've got a big dinosaur. We've got cavemen because they go, oh, it's just like Earth. however many billion years, however many
Yeah,
million
so many
years
million
ago.
years ago. Yeah, because
Like,
we still had dinosaurs with cavemen.
I'm going to say it's only like that if you're watching some of the films from
If
the
you're
50s.
watching 1 million years BC.
Like, yeah, it's a shame Tom isn't there, because Tom would have been like, this is just like all them films. This is great. And yeah, we set up loads. So we see Suda's still on the ship, like you say. The Voyager reactivates him, the Doctor reactivates himself. And Seska's quite savvy to hang on, just because it looks like you've blown up the shuttle, you might not have done.
Yeah, check for wreckage. Not
So,
just.
Exactly. So we've got them seeds of how we're going to resolve it. We've got dinosaurs, we've got cavemen. A little bit like you said for the Prodigy episode. I feel like this episode maybe goes on a couple of minutes too long. Like you have them sort of wandering about on the planet for a little bit. And it feels to me like they get exiled onto the planet. Voyager takes off. We should probably there rather than having a couple of minutes. Even though you get great stuff from Janeway, she's very much in charge. Like, right, we're going to break down into teams. We're going to find water. We're going to find
food, water, shelter.
Yeah. So all that's great, but I feel like that could have been in the teaser of part 2.
Yeah.
And maybe just had a stronger finish, because it feels like we get to the dramatic climax of the episode, then we wander around for 2 minutes, then we finish. Yeah. But it's a nice setup. And like you said earlier, what's great, particularly about Voyager 2-parters, is they do them well. They feel like one story. And
well, like I said, they did film part 2 and 3. I can't remember the name, which other 3 episodes of season 3.
Yeah.
At the same time. And it was doing what they did season 1. And I think season 1 got hit by writers' strikes, didn't it? Why it was so short. And then but then they filmed some that they used for season 2. And I wonder if they were just doing that in case they got another writers' strike, so they could have a full season.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know exactly what went on and everything, but this will be the last season it happens, though. We're back normally on track, I think, from this point onwards.
Oh, we are, but I would like it'd be interesting to find out if they carried on shooting a couple of episodes at the end of it, other seasons.
They're doing a documentary out there by the same sort of team that did that DS9 documentary, and if it's as thorough and interesting as that one, I won't be surprised if we get an answer to that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'd be interested. I will be watching that
when
it comes
without
out.
question, yeah.
And probably go to pictures again to see
if
when it
they
comes
show it
out.
in the cinema like they did with the DS9 one, that'd be great. But yeah, so that's Basics Part 1. Next week, we're going to cover the mid-season finale of Prodigy and the
Moral Star Part 2, and we'll be covering Basics Part 2.
Basics Part 2, and then then it's Discovery again. So yeah, we've got some really interesting stuff lined up. But for now, then we'll leave it there. If you want to get in touch with us in the meantime, we're on Twitter. It's at RetrekPod. You can email us retrekpod@gmail.com, or just come and join us on the Facebook group and tell us what you think.
Yeah.
And thanks for trekking with us this time. We'll see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Bye-bye.